I think East Beach, a little bit of what we call Little Beach. And he's got some photographs on the walls, and he'll be telling you all about what he said. I understand that he's been summering in Horseneck since the 90s, or that range, and has really done a wonderful job of reconstructing what was destroyed by the hurricane with maps and stuff. And I also want to welcome Elsie here. Elsie Haskell is here. This is an old library for the town of Dartmouth. And Elsie was one of the librarians who operated this library. And we welcome her to come back to see how well we're taking care of the library and what we're doing here. So without further ado and taking time from our guest speaker, David Jones.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me here. Bob is going to, we had a little computer issue, so Bob's also going to serve as the guy who pushes the page down button. So we're going to see if we can make that work as we page through slides. One modification to what Bob said, I actually summered here when I was a little kid from the 60s, way back when. My mom, who's in the second row, was like, no, not the 1990s, the 1960s. I grew up spending summers in Westport, and a lot of my postcard collecting came from being kind of homesick for Westport while working up in Boston and realizing I could sort of reconnect by getting into the old postcards. And I was about to press my advance button, and you anticipated it. That's awesome. So I'm going to talk about East Beach mostly, before the 1938 hurricane, really back in the early years of the 20th century. This is probably a familiar view. East Beach nowadays. We page on to the next one. And that they're looking from go ahead, on. And there we go, looking for two different directions. West from the far end of the town beach, and east from Horseneck Point, which is the technical name for the Gooseberry Neck Causeway, the base there. Nothing there but trailers now, but if we move on, here's the overall view. This is just a Google Maps view. I use these a lot in the discussion. And here's some general orientation that we can use. So starting here, that's Horseneck Point. That's where you go out to Gooseberry. John Reed Road comes in here from Route 88. This little road becomes pretty important. That's Farley Lane. You blink and you miss it, but it's still there. This section is the town beach, and here you may remember this little jog in the road where a few years back they had to push the road back after some storms. That's where we've had some of the most erosion. You get further off, this set of rocks, which is where the Audubon is technically called Quonset Rocks. And most important of all, there's a Bayside restaurant, which is most important because it has pie. So it got to stay oriented to that. Go on ahead. There we go. So there's nothing to be seen on the beach generally that comes from way back when. Whoops, we went too far. There we go. But you can still, when you're walking on the beach, still see pieces of what used to be there, and they'll come up at odd times. I was actually walking on the beach just after Christmas and came across this terracotta thing. It's about this big, just sticking out of the beach, just exposed around low tide. Some kind of plumbing, could be septic, could be a well, I don't know, but clearly not put there by nature. Clearly this is something dating back to way, way back when. The houses, though, they're completely gone, right? This is even back in 1972 they were gone, and all we've really got is a couple of trailers there. This was only a short time after the hurricane, and in fact the beach has receded a little further since then. Here it is in 38. Now this picture is from the Westport Historical Society, that one's from the Dartmouth Historical Society, one of your pop-ups. This is standing at the far end of the beach over the Dartmouth end and looking back. In fact, that's a little bit of a house that was left behind at Horseneck Point. Not all of those were destroyed, but everything on East Beach was wiped out. There just was nothing there after 38. People tried to rebuild a little bit, then 44 came along, they rebuilt again, then 54 came along, and since then it's nothing but trailers. So that's all we got. But way back when, there was a fair amount to see. There we go. And you can find it through old pictures. So this is a selection of picture postcards. I think that, yeah, it wants to go two at a time. Some of these are printed colored postcards. Some of them are printed photo postcards, but this is how we know what was there. And they ranged from fairly modest gingerbready things to this guy, the Trafford Cottage, the biggest mansion on the beach. Very impressive.
The upper left gingerbread, do we have any idea of what family that belonged to?
I don't. The pretty little gingerbread one?
summer cottage, and it was kind of a gingerbread.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to see if I can find it, but
I'm really good if you have a picture, I can find it, but I'm not much good on the names that they attach to.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, that's tricky. Now, some of the best ways we can see this are photo postcards, and this is a type of postcard that was very popular in the early years of the 20th century. It's just postcard sized, but the way it's made is with a negative that's as big as the postcard or even bigger. So you just put the negative on the paper and shine a light through it. Since your 35 millimeter camera negative is that big, having a negative this big means you've got tremendous amounts of detail. So if you page on, you can blow them up to tremendous size, and that's what I've got over here. These are postcards, little 3x5 postcards that have been blown up. And later on, you can take a look and see what you can find. You can actually generally see quite a lot. So here's an example. This is a postcard down here. That's the postcard, already larger than life. You blow it up this big, and if you page on, we'll get some captions. You can see all kinds of stuff in here. This is actually, that writing reads Ocean House Stable. There was a stable on East Beach. This is standing at the Dartmouth end of the beach, looking down towards Horseneck Point. Can we page on, see if we can get the next one? This is the Ocean House Hotel, one of the oldest hotels on the beach. There's a stable. This is going to be very important. That's a Sea View Cottage. We'll be coming back to that a lot. This guy I just call Mr. Mustache because he's extremely dapper. I don't know who he was. This postcard is from 1906 or earlier, so long, long time back. Already, the Point Bridge was built in 1894. Already by 1906, there was a fair amount on the beach, as you can see. Okay, let's talk about some of the photographers we have. That last postcard was by Dubois. O.E. Dubois of Fall River, who's one of the most important photographers of this area. Hundreds of pictures of Westport and Tiverton and Fall River and all that. Eastern Illustrated, this is a Dubois card. These are 3 pictures of the Trafford Cottage. That's the biggest cottage on the beach. They owned Westport Factory and had this stone cottage. Never mind that it was stone. It disappeared in the 38 hurricane, but it was quite impressive. This one is a Dubois. This one's Eastern Illustrating. And this one is a photographer we didn't know until recently. And we now know that was Clarence Williston, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. So Dubois and Eastern Illustrating, they're professionals. Dubois had a photography studio in Fall River. Eastern Illustrating was out of Maine. Eastern would send photographers out to drive around, take pictures of all the sites, and then sell cards to the local stores. And so they would make little sample cards that says sample on it, and see if the store was interested in it. And we know who they were because they signed their work. This is the Dubois photo on the back, and this says Eastern. The other photographer of the beach, we now know as Clarence Williston, didn't sign his work. And so we didn't know who he was until a lot of postcards came up for sale last year, and I bought them all. And this is, by the way, this is what they kind of look like in their natural color. Most of the time, when you see pictures I have up here, I've tried to enhance them a little bit to make them clear. And originally, they can range from nice and black to really severely faded, and the rest of them will be sort of color corrected. So we still weren't sure who all this came from. We know that the paper type was from 1918 or earlier, and that's about all we knew until we did some more research. We knew they all came from a guy named Clarence Williston. Oh, right, his postcard album was from Clarence Williston. But strange combination here. We have a postcard that actually says extra sample, this kind of purple stamping, Horseneck Beach, that's characteristic of this photographer who we'd seen before. But this is a personal picture, right? I mean, either somebody was taking that for their own use or they knew the photographer awfully well to have a picture like that. Now, it wasn't that unusual to take pictures and have them printed on postcard paper in those days. That was a fairly common way to do it, an easy way to get it done. So that by itself didn't tell us much. So we can find out a little bit about Clarence Williston. Here's some pictures of him. It's amazing what you can find out about somebody who lived in the early 20th century. Imagine what people will find out about us one day, all the records that are around. So that's Clarence, that's his wife Ethel. This is where he lived, Leicester Street in Fall River. Still there, although it doesn't look as pretty anymore because all that nice gingerbread's been covered with vinyl now, so now it looks kind of dull. Next one. Here they are on a trip to New York. This is the Hotel Bartholdi. We know that the Hotel Bartholdi went out of business in 1912. They got married in 1909, so it's probably right in there somewhere. See the next one. They're in the second row there. But you get some great faces in this when the computer's ready. Faces and hats coming up. So that's Clarence and Ethel. The driver actually looks kind of normal, but some of these bowlers are, yeah, there you go. Look at this guy, right? This is why men don't wear bowlers anymore. All right. This is the final proof, though. Oop, It seems to want to jump ahead a few at a time. Oh, now we're several ahead. We're into page 21, man. 20, okay. This is Clarence on Quonset rocks. Those are the rocks at the end of the beach by the Audubon. And that is a camera case.
All right.
Okay? Now, I don't know what exact kind of camera he had because all we have is the case, but I was able to find out what kind of film he uses because remember, you lay the film right on the camera to reproduce it, so you can measure the size. So it was a little bit smaller than a postcard. This isn't exactly his camera. It's a little bit chunkier, but it takes the same size film that he did. And at some point later, well, see if I were a little better at this, I could pull this out. It's got a bellows on there. See, it's a little finicky, but I'll do it a little better later on. This is the kind of camera that he could have used. It's the right size of film, and it was a big advantage over what those other guys were using. We could move on. Because they, oh, sorry, another example, more proof.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Just like photographers used to do, he left his camera case in the picture. So this is not something a professional would do. I conclude Clarence Williston took all the pictures himself. So in addition to being a music teacher and running the family roofing business, I think he was an amateur photographer. Let's see what we get next. So the other guys, they were using big cameras, think tripods and bellows and stuff. The Eastern photographers had their own trucks to carry that because they had to carry all those things and big heavy glass plates. Dubois had his horse and buggy that he liked to put in the picture for visual interest. But Clarence's camera would have been a lot more portable. Coming up will be an ad from Kodak. So he could move it around the beach and take a lot more pictures if the computer is thinking about it. There we are. So this was an example where they were saying, don't use those heavy glass plates, use this new thing called film, and you'll be able to get a lot more pictures. So you can imagine him going up and down the beach with his little camera, sometimes leaving it in the picture, and giving us quite a record of East Beach around, all these are around 1905 to 1916. That's the key period where we're going to see Clarence working. Okay, so here's where the Willistons' home base was. Let's page on. This we know about from the Westport Historical Society. This is helpfully labeled Williston's Cottage. Hey, there we go. This is a cyanotype of kind of print similar to blueprints in the old days. That's his very distinctive looking house, kind of square. Here's another view. This is a view by Dubois, like one professional to another, from the back of this is the road along East Beach looking back. There's this funny little thing next door that I've never figured out what it is, some kind of observatory. I'm not sure that even belonged to Clarence, but Sea View here, there's a little sign there that says Sea View, so we know that's what it is. That's what he called it. Everybody had a name for their cottage. Here's it is with the Dubois picture from Mr. Mustache. It's about a third of the way down the beach. Actually, the road takes a little bend there. We'll see that in the map in a second. What else can we see? He had a good view. Oh, so while you're at the Willistons, what do? This, I'm pretty sure, is Ethel and one of their kids hanging out on the porch in a hammock. He's a couple of friends just sitting on the cobbles. And this one is one of my favorites. I think I have that up. I didn't get a enlargement. Let's see the next one. There's just a full-size version of it. That's like a perfect little kid on the beach on a blustery day. If it loads. There we go, right? Pretty nice. So that's Clarence's house right over here. This is right out front. I don't know who this kid is. Not the right age to be one of his. It must have been a friend, but it's just a great picture. You could have water sports while you're on the beach. One couple of things to know. You could watch the boats go by. You could take a skiff out. One thing here, notice the boardwalk. There was more sand on East Beach in those days, but not at high tide. There was sand at low tide. And it wasn't any easier to walk on the cobblestones then than it is now. So people are always putting down boardwalks or carpet or something. And the example here is this dog. That dog's come to the end of the boardwalk. He's like, I don't know. And all those people in their very commodious bathing costumes are inviting the dog in, and he's not going to take that one. Let's see what we got next. Around the side of the house you could take pictures. There's a whole big group. Again, I'm not sure who they are, but looks like family and friends. This trio is a later picture. The house is actually changed to shingles from clapboards. And they're kind of the right age range to be Clarence's children, his three oldest children. They could be, like, 3 to 8 or something in there. He had a daughter, 2 sons, and then a younger daughter who wouldn't have been born yet. So I'm pretty sure that's who they are. We'll see her again later. That one's probably 1918. So across, in back of his house, he had some cottages across the street, this one and this one. Let's move along. And this guy's jogging across the street maybe to get to that house we saw a minute ago, maybe not. Maybe just getting away from this puddle. They had a lot of trouble with the road back then. And let's see, let's try the next one. People, you know, laying out their soaking wet clothes. Wearing a tie at the beach. It was not such a great time maybe for apparel. People have noticed there's some old empty lanterns. I think at some point people put out oil lanterns, but by this stage all there were the remaining sort of posts left behind. I'm guessing those cottages across the street took in guests because it's too many people and it's too many buildings to just be family. But I love the giant bows and all that. They had a couple of different cottages back here, and some of those are pretty ramshackle. They look like they were done pretty casually. And of course, the exposure there is terrible, right? I mean, it's going to take a lot of weathering. So I'm sure a lot of buildings didn't last very long. He had a skiff out on the let, helpfully identified as Williston's boat. In fact, there was a little dock back on the let that you could take boats out of. He occasionally took the occasional funny picture, making an ass of himself, I guess, in this one. So I guess Clarence had a sense of humor. We can pinpoint him on a map. This is a map from 1895, and it says, "See Williston, Seaview." There you go. And CW across the street. In this case, it's probably his father, I think was Charles, from 1895. Not a very accurate map, but it gives you a general sense of where he was. But the next map is quite accurate. Okay, so this is a map on which we've taken Google and plotted all the houses that were on East Beach according to a Sanborn fire insurance map. So these are little plans of each house. So that's every house. Beach is about a mile long. There are about 70 houses on this side. And on this side, there were some houses, some garages, some stores and things like that. We know he was right here. So the Seaview was here. The rear buildings were there. And from that, we can extrapolate to where it would be today. Let me see. Yeah, I haven't filled in all of it. That's Horseneck Point down there. And this is the far corner. Can we get the next, do you think? There we go. Zooming in. So remember I said Farley Lane, don't forget that. That's that little street down here. He was kind of at the corner. One thing you notice right away though is that's the ocean. So the story of East Beach is the road is still in the same place, but the beach on the ocean side is a lot smaller than it used to be. Yeah. So you're driving where the road always has been, but there used to be room for a lot more. Now, I think next we're going to go down Farley Lane, so let's page on. Yeah, so there's a little view of Farley Lane. Like I said, blink and you miss it, but it's there. And back on Farley Lane, you could go back onto the marsh. So let's do that next, where we'll see cows, promise. So here's Farley Lane in the overhead view. And we're going to go back up this way and see what we can see. That's Ethel, Clarence's wife, beckoning us to go across the ford that used to be there. There's stones in the middle of you can see the tide racing through there. That happens to be still there. So that's the ford, mostly gone. But if you look at what it was next to Ethel, there's a sign, which will come up in a second, saying no trespassing. And the reason was the farmer who owned that didn't want you going across the ford without authorization. Let's see, can we get it? But that's where the ford was. Let's page on through. There's still some remnants of it there. It's, you know it's when you've gotten to it. All persons and dogs are forbidden trespassing or hunting on my land because there were cows. So back in the old days, the salt marsh was a resource to be used for grazing, and that's what somebody was doing. And I think we'll see if the PowerPoint works. If we page on, we should be able to, okay, so here's a picture that I framed up, and then the next one is what it looked like a few years later. Maybe we can back up again, just do that. Yeah, can you? All right, so watch this rock. It's still there. Page on, there it is. So that's the same spot. Quite different otherwise. I mean, the grass is a lot longer when there isn't cattle on it, right? This is eroded a little bit, but you can still see the old signs. It's really fun to be able to, pin something from 100 years ago and put it there. But no more cattle on the marsh. All right, let's go back to the road and go to the human part of this. So here we are, just for reference. That's Clarence's house across the street again. Those balconies up there were good vantage points. So we'll see where he could take pictures up and down the street. He's sort of at that little kink in the road here, and he could see east and west. So first we're going to look, if you look right across the street towards the water, he'd be looking at his own house, which is coming up next. There it is. Not terribly big. This was, 20 or 30 feet square. Its footprint wasn't much bigger than this room. So these were quite small cottages. There's a very important outhouse. The sanitation, who knows, right? There's nothing but cobbles and sand there. I'm not sure where their well was, but I hope it was a long way away. Let's see what we got next. Oh, you can also see Seaview. It's got its name. This is looking up towards towards Gooseberry Neck. We'll come back to this one later on. We're not going to go that direction now, but Gooseberry is that little bit of land way off there in the distance. And John Reed Road came in over here. And then if we look the other way, that's where we're going to go first. So now we're looking down towards the end of the beach on the Dartmouth end. There's one of those empty lanterns. Again, at some point they must have put oil in them or something. And we're going to go, and there's where Farley Lane went up, right next to his house. And as we keep going, we'll take a look at that first big building on the way, which was the Plaza Hotel. We'll also have an interaction with Deepwater and Breezy when the computer loads it. There we go. So don't worry about all these pictures. We're going to visit all these places. You'll know them all by the end of the presentation. But this is the Williston Cottage. It's blue. That'll help you remember. That's our anchor. That's where we start. And we've just been looking down the beach, and we're going to go to the Plaza Hotel next. So we'll look onto that. Oh yeah, there are cattle back up there too. There's a little picture of that. We know it's the Plaza Hotel. This is one of the first cards I got of this because this woman says, hey, the large house is the Plaza Hotel. She says, George is boiling lobster for supper, but that won't do me any good. Allergic, maybe. We're having plenty to eat, although there are no baker carts that come this way. Love, mother. Yeah? So it gives you a little taste of, visiting the beach 100 years ago. And they're constantly working on the road, too. You can see it's being built up. So here's the oldest picture of the plaza from the road. It was a commercial establishment at the time. These are schoolboys making trouble, but that's the Moxie man. The Moxie advertising, he goes like this, Moxie, right? And they say that Moxie at this point was more popular than Coca-Cola, although Coca-Cola recently bought them. So I guess that changed over time. The Pride of Maine. Here we can see the sign has moved a little bit. I imagine they probably had to take it down every winter and put it back up again. Again, it's so exposed there. Cold drinks, candy, tobacco, cigars, guy in an apron, proud proprietor. But as we go on a little further, the next one, no more signs. So, and in fact, in my 1933 map, this isn't shown as a store at all. So I have a feeling it sort of went private one way or another. Either it became somebody's house or it became a rental property. I don't think it stayed as a hotel. So the only pictures we have of this as a hotel are from Clarence Williston, which is great. And here we are looking at it. That's actually a little corner of the sea view. That's the plaza. That's the end of the beach. And we're going to look in a minute at these rocks in the beach, because rocks stay put. All these houses are gone, but the rocks are still there. That's Dartmouth in the distance, way off there. Another one I really like. This one I do have, right? Yeah, it's up over there. You can look at it later. There's the Plaza Hotel. We're going to see the Kingfisher next. There are some of the rocks. This boulder, I think, is long gone. It's gotten moved around by storms. I can't find it. But that's bedrock, so it's still there. Oh, yeah, and lots of beach at low tide. Is this a great picture? There's this child, he's pulling an oar around. I mean, that one could almost be now. Yeah, that was it. He was good with kid pictures. So here are the rocks again, a little further down the beach. Big enough to drive your pony cart around, actually, but really embedded in the beach at low tide. That's the end of the beach with Quonset rocks beyond. Okay, this is another progression slide. So I went there a few years ago. These are the rocks. Watch this rock, and we'll try to page forward and back. So this is around 1911. And let's see, is there anything else worth noting on this? They had to rebuild this deck, this boardwalk every year. I think what happened is the beach moved, so it keeps changing as we look at cars from different times. There we go. This was 2015. That little spot is still there. It's right, exactly the same rock. The difference is these houses aren't even on East Beach. Those are the ones up 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street, up towards the Bayside. That's how far away they are. They're across that little slough. So the beach has receded. There's nothing on the beach at all. But I wasn't sure that this really gave you enough sense of how far away those rocks are from the beach. So let's continue on. Here is the plaza was built right up to the crest of the beach. So the beach actually is highest right near the water, and then it sort of slopes back, and they were right up on there. Everybody wanted to be there, so they'd have, looking right out at the waves. And the map says that porch was 85 feet from the edge of the road, so I measured the edge of the road and went out to take a look. Went out there in December, put on my chest waders, started walking into the water a little after Christmas. Yeah, these are some of the rocks. But that's the jog in the road, so tons of erosion here. I got 81 feet in, and that was plenty. I was up to my hips in water. I really didn't need to go the extra 4 feet to prove that the plaza was now in the water. By the way, this pickup truck drove up while I was doing that and wouldn't leave until I got out of the water again. I think he thought I was crazy. Maybe I was a little bit. But I've proven it to you, okay? So the plaza would be in the water now. The rocks that you see, in fact, these rocks in the beach, those would have been under the beach. These particular rocks are now fully in the water. So in 1972, you could still walk to them at low tide without getting your feet wet, but not today. Let's see what else we got. That's Farley Lane for reference. Yeah, they're in the water. So when you drive by now, you see some rocks in the beach. Those were inside the beach. These are the rocks that used to be touching the beach. And then finally, I was talking about Breezy. Well, I was out there, right? So it's December. I'm in chest waders on a slippery rock, and I look down, and here somebody's engraved in it, Breezy's Rock, and the S is backwards. It's somehow the combination of having the determination to chisel something into rock and do your S backwards is just, I don't know what it was. But if you ever meet Breezy, his name is still there. Okay, come down to we'll take this last bit. These rocks were a good place to stand to take pictures down the beach. This one was 1916. Something different about this postcard, this is one of Clarence's. He's gotten a new camera. The image is bigger. It covers the whole postcard. So I figure almost all the others I've got are before 1916. He probably used this camera. It was also a type where you could open up the back and write a little note on it. And that's what he's done, the Horseneck Beach in South Westport. So we know this one is from 1916. Now, this is just another view. This is one of his earlier ones. There's a Kingfisher Hotel that was built. That's a beautiful building, and one of the major ones on this end. This one, though, I just really like. I've never seen a house like that. That's some kind of Carpenter Gothic. It was really small. It's about 20 feet square, so it's smaller than this room in its footprint. And it must have been just really neat, but also really cramped. You would not want to be my size and try to get into that house. We'll see it again, too. This is a build slide. So here's from 1908 or earlier. And the next one will show the Kingfisher growing up right here. There it goes. And a few other changes. This guy grows a dormer. There are a couple of houses. But this is 1911. By this time, the beach doesn't get developed much more at this end of the beach after this. It's pretty much done. Now we're going to, so I did this talk in Westport, and at this point I turned back and went to the other part of Westport. But since we're in Dartmouth, I'm actually going to go into Dartmouth now. So I added this. So we'll keep going. Remember Quonset Rocks at the far end? They're in Dartmouth. There's Clarence sitting on them. This is a commercial postcard looking off into the distance, and that's Little Beach in the background. Now, the problem with Little Beach is there are lots of pictures of Quonset Rocks because they were an attraction, but there aren't any pictures of Little Beach except sort of in the background of the Quonset Rocks picture, so it's very hard to see what's going on there. And in fact, I would really like to see more pictures of Little Beach because there's very little record of it. So these are some of the commercial pictures, just splashing in the surf, hanging out on the rocks. I think that guy's fishing. There's East Beach in the background, so we're looking back. But when you try to find Little Beach, which would be sort of behind us in all these views, you just see it in the distance. It raises a question. Yeah, here we are. So there's some pictures from Quonset Rocks, and hey, look at that, there's some houses on the beach back there, but mostly it was a picture of the rocks. What raises a question is there's one card that I'm going to show in a second that shows a set of houses that I thought were on Little Beach, but I couldn't prove it until recently, and it was really hard to pin down where they were. They did turn out not to be this one. There they are. So this card has been a puzzle for years. I've seen 3 or 4 copies of it. It says, Little Harbor, Horseneck Beach, South Westport, Mass. I've never heard of Little Harbor. Someone's crossed out Mrs. L.L. Gifford and written of H.L. Trafford. Does this have to do with the Traffords? And they crossed out Little Harbor. Maybe there's a clue on the back. We'll see. Maybe, why did they do that? Oh, it's in Swedish. Okay, I guess we'll keep searching. So we can tell that these guys are on the beach. There's a kind of a channel, and there's water going out to sea. But it was tricky to find where this would be, but I think I've nailed it down. Here's a view of Little Beach. So you have, right at the end of East Beach here, there are the Quonset Rocks. This part is all sort of dunes, and this is where the houses are now. This is all just a flat beach, and that channel meanders across, and sometimes be in one place, and sometimes be in another, and sometimes close up entirely. So the beach is really low through there. All right, I think we can go on from there. There's the Audubon headquarters, and there's the pie. In fact, even just I have one picture, one Google Maps picture with the outlet here and another one with it there, so it moves around quite a lot. So these guys, these are two other pictures of little beach houses, some kind of barn. It was way up here. These three or four, it's clearly a dwelling. It's got laundry on a line. But they were way up here, and curiously, they were gone in 1914. So they were built on the beach and then gone. I don't know if there was a storm that wiped them out. I don't know. I really don't know why. There's not much information about Little Beach, but that'd be really interesting to find out. Neither one is where our mystery house was, though. We will see in the next slide, the mystery house was out here. So they're way in the background. Sorry, they don't get a whole lot clearer than this, but that's the end of the dune part, and this is the beginning of the flat part where the outlet of the beach is. And there are a few little houses right there, and with a whole lot of enhancement, we can tie them to the three that we were seeing. The top picture is it was Eastern Illustrating, and this one's one of Clarence's here. So that matches that.
Yeah.
This house has a sort of little chamfered end to it that actually can be seen right here. There's a little triangle cut off, and this barn matches up. So that's where they were. But what were they doing there, and what's the water? Well, you look closely, there's this very straight channel here. Mother Nature doesn't make channels through marshes that straight. Somebody dug that at some point. And Mother Nature didn't particularly like it. She filled it right back up again. But these houses were right about there, where that channel met the water. I mean, maybe somebody was in a hurry to get into Allen's Pond. Maybe it was one of those years where it silted up and the water got stagnant and they just wanted some kind of outlet. But that's the mystery solved. Those houses were right there on Little Beach. Still a lot of questions, though. These are like pretty much all the pictures I have of Little Beach. So again, other than just being background, there's not much fun. So if anybody's got a stash of them, please let the society know, and we'll get to work on them. All right, let's turn around and go back to East Beach. We're standing on Little Beach. There's the houses on East Beach. That's the last house on the end. This is an old negative that somebody took. And we're going to pop now back up the beach, and we're going to see Ocean House, one of the oldest hotels on the beach, a little ways from Clarence's house. So I think first we're going to go and see Clarence's view again from his backyard. Excuse me, back lot. Oh, here we are. That's okay. Okay, so here's our orientation. That's Quonset Rocks. Here's the blue. That's Williston. And there's Ocean House. We're going to see that next. And I think I do have one that's going to be the view from Clarence's back porch. After that, we'll go down and see the Surfside Hotel and Gifford's store. We'll take a little trip over to Gooseberry Neck, which will be down here. We'll finish up with Tripp and Lawrence store. So, Ocean House, right here. This is looking from Clarence's back lot. There's a hotel, there's also a windmill, there's a barn, there's all kinds of stuff. This was quite a big operation, but there are, while there are pictures of it, there are no postcards from there. I've never seen a postcard from somebody saying, I'm staying at Ocean House and having a wonderful time. I don't know why. It was built in 1883. It burned down in 35, I think. It's on the next slide. So people must have been staying there, but I've only seen references that it went through a lot of owners and things like that. Let's see what here we go. At its peak, though, this is a picture from around 1916. A hotel, a barn, 2 lodging houses, 2 bathhouses, a bowling alley, and a windmill. And in 1926, they added a dance hall that was all between the road and the water. Wow. Somehow, right? So here's the barn. It's not a terribly big barn, but it's a barn. There's the house. That's the bowling alley. There's the windmill. It burned in the off-season. They did save the bowling alley, in case you were worried about that. Nobody was injured because it was off-season. So the lot was originally 225 feet long. And if you look at it today, spoiler alert, it's about 100 feet to the water. So there's no way, if you're driving past there, and this is sort of where the let comes in, and you're wondering how could you have fit a bowling alley and a barn and a couple of hotels and boarding houses, the answer is you had 2 or 3 times as much beach in the old days. We can just page to the next. Yeah, there it is. See, high tide line's way here now. This is still one of the wider parts of the beach at this end, but not enough room for that kind of stuff. Let's see what we got next. I think next, yep, let's go up to the Surfside Hotel. This is, we're getting into Giffords. I guess there's a Gifford talk coming up soon. This is Lydia Gifford and her husband, John. Lydia ran the hotel and John ran everything else, it seems. So there's the Surfside Hotel. And this is, remember, where Clarence left his case and a little box of film. Yep. Now, I think next we're going to look back along the beach. So here's the Surfside. It's most of the way up the beach, about a third, maybe a quarter of the beach left on the way to Gooseberry. There's the Surfside, and you can look down this way, and this is where you get some of this nice gingerbready stuff. was a very pretty little group of houses. That's actually Ocean House in the distance, and that's the end of the beach. So you had a nice view. And the next one is a colored version of it. That was actually for sale at the store on Westport Point. So you could stop by on your way back and send a note home. I think the ace, yeah, so now this is where we are. That Surfside. Notice it would be in the water. There's Horseneck Point. We're going to go just take a quick look up there next. This is a very early picture. I know it's, with postcards you know like it was postmarked in 1906, so it's no later than 1906, but it could have been a photo from 1880 that they printed in 1906, so it tends to be, I know it's before 1906, I think it's a long way before then. A few things to note, there's just a little barn out on Gooseberry Neck and there's no causeway whatsoever. This is just a sandbar. You walked out at low tide. Geological term is a tombolo. It's a sand spit that connects an island to the land. And there's almost nothing out here. That's actually the old life-saving station there. But the other thing to notice is, while most of these people look pretty quaint, she didn't look very happy. I think this is an early person not liking their picture taken, which is why usually, you see this card sometimes, but you'll see next that she's usually not in it. Now, we've done a bunch of investigating on Gooseberry. This barn is not the one that was there a little bit later. It actually was blown down, and then some other barn was built, all before the present-day causeway was done. Let's see, what else we got here? There are a bunch, oh yeah, here, this. Almost all copies of this card. Stop right there. I wonder why. This is the only one I've ever seen with her in it. Clarence took a picture a few years later, and you're starting to see some more houses being built. This was developed relatively late. There's still no causeway out to Gooseberry, though. There are some lobster pots on the beach. The fishermen used to, Kooky Maycumber told me, bring their boats up and moor them off East Beach and just bring the stuff right up onto shore. He said that all stopped after 1938. They didn't do that anymore. One thing Clarence captured, possibly even sort of by accident, from way down the beach is this building going up. Now, this was flat in the last picture, but you see there's a whole bunch that's been built up there. There's a little workman's house. Here's a frame. There's a roof and a big buildup, and that is a house that's still there. One of the few that survived. There's the one that, yeah, here it is, this one. Now, that's still right at the root of Gooseberry Neck Causeway. Back when it was built, it was called the Lookout. This is around 1914. A lot of sand trucked in to build it up. The Monantuck Hotel was next door. That's still there also. There's another little house in between now. But all of that buildup, some combination of that and the fact that Gooseberry Neck was offshore meant they survived the hurricane, although not intact. There was all kinds of bathhouses and stuff out on the beach, and that all got destroyed. But the house is still there, and it's still there today. So this later turned into Allen's, later Chandy's by the Sea. Now it's a private home that's been built on the ruins of this stuff. All right, back down to the Surfside. Lots of pictures from the Surfside. Might have something to do with the fact that this was published by Mrs. L.L. Gifford. In other words, you could buy it at her store. So there are lots of postcards from there, and happy people on the beach. What else? This is an older picture before she built her dining room. The fun thing about this one is actually the back. It was sent to Mrs. Nellie Gaskell in the warping department of a mill in Fall River. So this is someone writing home, presumably someone who worked in the mill, writing back to a friend saying, I'm having a lovely time at the beach. I have one that's actually addressed to Bessie Borden, which I'm assuming isn't Lizzie Borden's pet nickname. But here we go, Nellie Gaskell, the American Thread Company warping department. How about that, the warping department? Yeah, 1912. Here's Mrs. Gifford drumming up some business, saying, I can serve you some dinner, and here's her stationery that she had. She was pretty enterprising. She was known for her cooking. The story goes she started out in a tent, and then built a house, and then built onto the house, and then built onto the house, until they had the full Surfside Hotel.
Didn't spell accommodate correctly.
Well, then again, she did an awfully good cooking.
Yeah,
So this is her,
interesting to pick it up.
here's her dining room. She's very proud of it. And inside there, she was known for a collection of antiques, which we'll see in a sec. The dining room actually is pretty impressive. So you have to imagine, now, this is sort of, you come down from Route 88, you hit the beach. If you just sort of kept going, you'd be where the Surfside Hotel was. Imagine coming up here right onto the beach, I mean, really right onto the beach, and looking out and seeing, you know, getting a snack there. When it comes to, yeah, here we go. We could page through, there are 3 or 4 of these. We can just keep going. But that's pretty dramatic, right? For a cottage right on the beach, nice woodwork. You'll see in the next, this is a lace tablecloth. There's cut glass on there. There's a samovar. There's needlework. Bernie Gifford tells me that is mocha ware, so this actually would have been quite colorful. Very pretty place to come down for breakfast. Right, there's your cut glass. Got, I suppose, a shipper robe or something over there, right? There's the glass, the china, the mocha ware. And then this next one is from Eastern Illustrating. I put it in here because that's a widgeon, and I'm afraid that might be a loon over there. But the point being, a lot of the guests at this point were hunters, so people would have been down to the beach to shoot ducks in those sort of like pre-Migratory Bird Treaty Act days, and would have eaten here, possibly even brought in some things to cook. Now, if you walk by, you'd see this sign, which actually says store out to the road. So if you were trolling down the beach, you'd be encouraged to do that. So why don't we do that? We're going to go around the side and go out and take a look at what's on the back of the Surfside Hotel. We'll meet Doctor and Buff and the Little Brown Betty. Things to look forward to. So, well, we'll do Doctor and Buff while we're here. Well, there we go. Okay, so this is just around the side. There's a side view of the hotel. I'm glad we have a colored one because these were full of flowers, so that was really very pretty, these old skiffs. This is the only picture I've seen of Lydia. It's a terrible picture. It's from Westport Historical Society. I guess she was always busy inside. There are lots of pictures of John, and that's what we'll have next, because I think he was usually hanging around the back and chatting with people. He seems to be well known. Doctor and Buff are the dogs. The two pet cats don't get names. They're just cats. He's chopping wood, which these guys did a lot of in those days, right? I mean, you had to keep your wood split. And this is looking back down the beach towards the Dartmouth end. That's John again. There's his store, which he built in 1911. There are those flowers again. He had a stable there. Again, very enterprising guy. As the automobile got more popular, he made it a garage as well. This little thing back there is on a marsh island. There's actually still a cellar hole way out there. I don't know, I'm not quite sure what it was, but I think it was some kind of farm. I believe it's conservation land now. Around 1911, he built the store. And it both advertised the store and the dinners. Gifford's, the place for good fish and lobster dinner. That was for Lydia. And of course, Moxie. You've got to have Moxie. Let's see. Yeah, I think the next one will show. Oh, right. So where are we? We're way back here. John Reed Road comes in here, and there's this funky-looking garage at that end. He's right in there, right at the corner. So as you're coming in from 88, you would sort of, if you came in from 88 today and just went a little bit to your left, store would be right there. Be a convenient place to have a store, actually. And there's that garage. It moved around the beach a lot. I don't know what this is. This is a uniform or something. I kind of like the cardigan and tie combo, but I don't know who she is. I hope I find out one day. But she's standing on his store, and we're looking back at where John Reed Road comes in. She's on the front porch. That's the cute little mailbox he used to have. Here's a commercial postcard showing some cars around 1915. This little thing turned into the Brown Betty, which is coming up next. It was just some kind of barn or storage building in this picture. And this is something we only have from Clarence, other than this advertisement in the 1915 Westport Directory. There's this nice picture of a kingfisher for the Kingfisher House, and the Little Brown Betty tea room and gift shop. So they've turned the storage barn into the gift shop, and this is actually a tent that's going to be your tea room. Looks like a nice little place, but these are the only pictures I've ever seen of the Little Brown Betty. So if it hadn't been for Clarence, I'm not sure we'd ever know what this had looked like. So a neat little thing right at the corner. Here's some close-up pictures of John's store. He sold ice cream from Peckham Davis Company in Fall River. And of course he had Moxie. Everybody's going, there's that Moxie guy. Right? Eat gentian root. He was enterprising and was also the postmaster for the beach. Now this picture is from the late 20s from the automobiles. It was actually posted in 1935. She's in some kind of toy pony cart, just for fun, and that's John. Now the back is a little bit poignant because this was written in 35, and the woman writes, John has aged considerably but is very jolly. In fact, this was the last year of his life. He died in the winter of 1935, and Lydia died soon after. So this was the twilight of it. A newspaper article noted that it was actually, the business had declined a bit, and its heyday was in the earlier years, like in the 20s, and that now people were coming to the beach and staying longer, and they didn't need to go out to eat at her place anymore. But the silver lining of this is all of her antiques were auctioned off, so none of them were taken by the hurricane. So that, at least that was taken by. All right, now we're going to go back. This is our last stop. The Horseneck store, way back on the other end of the beach, back down by the Kingfisher, and we're going to learn about what the wild waves are saying. So we've come from Gifford's store and the Surfside Hotel. Down here is the Tripp and Lawrence store, almost all the way to the end. Do I have a picture of Tripp? There's Tripp and Lawrence are over there. That's them. So we didn't know much about them. We had a few pictures before we found the Clarence Wilson pictures, but yeah, I wasn't even sure exactly where that was. That sort of looks like the Let back there, but there aren't a lot of clues in this. The next picture shows a little more, but no people. So, okay, they sold banner label ginger ale from Simpson Spring. Simpson Spring Company is still in business in Easton, Mass. They make really good soda. They call themselves the oldest bottler in the United States. They have a good spring. Yeah, so still not too many clues, right? Where is it? There's kind of, I don't know. So couldn't figure out exactly where it was. But we got some more pictures from Clarence, and that nailed it down. So here's another banner label, and we got some people now. I got another Wake Up with Moxie. I mean, Moxie was everywhere, right? Let's see what we got next. I think, what does that say? Is it victualler, I think? I forget what that says. Yeah, they have a wonder dog you'll see in the next picture. Look at that dog, great dog. So here are the guys. So these are Tripp and Lawrence, it says. He doesn't actually say which one is Tripp and which one is Lawrence, but Lawrence was younger, so I'm going to guess that's Lawrence and that's Tripp. Yeah. And that's just an awesome dog. Dog's in almost every picture. Yeah, here they are again, right? Isn't that awesome? And the whiskers and everything, and the Moxie. So Lawrence was roomed at Tripp's house. He was a widower from Maine. They were both licensed butchers, of all things, although I don't think they were butchers here. But since he's doing the hard work, I'm guessing he's the junior partner and that's Lawrence. There's the Kingfisher, the plaza's down there, and Clarence's place would have been way down there. Still, it's kind of fun. You got the buggy and you got the car. They were both going on at the same time. You're still in that transition period. And like so many people on the beach, he's splitting wood, because you got to do that all the time. Got definitely the better whiskers, right, of the two of them. This is a Simpson Spring ad. It'll show up in the next one. Simpson Spring beverages please particular people. Again, Easton, Mass, right off Route 24. There we go. So it's kind of fun when you get a picture of a store to try to see, you know, the ads for things like Fly Talks and weird old things that we don't have anymore. Stores are also great because they change a lot, so you can date the pictures from them. They tend to modify them. Houses stay the same. It's frustrating. So I don't know who these people are, but there they are, all posed by Clarence on the front porch. The next one shows the ladies, and I want to point out this is a case where it being black and white is a little bit of a problem. Look at this guy, though. Doesn't he look out of place? He looks like he's 20 years later. He just stepped out of a time machine. So the younger guy is dressed a lot more casual in these funky little rubber-soled things. What the heck are they? You'll see when the ladies come up, it looks like they're all just wearing white and sepia, but when you look closely at their costumes, it's actually quite a lot of detail in them, and it's over there on the wall, in the lower one. The dresses are probably pretty nice looking. So these folks are, I don't know, dressed up for Sunday? I doubt they got all that dressed up just to have Clarence take their picture at the store. One other thing, you may notice this is reversed. Clarence printed some of them backwards. So you can see, he wasn't a complete professional, he was a music teacher. But yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. There's actually quite a lot of fancy work in there and a lot of nice stripes. It probably were, if only you had a color version, that would probably be really neat looking. Now, I think, oh yeah, now this is the kind of thing that makes glad the heart of postcard collectors, because remember I was saying you can't date things very well? You can if there's a license plate. It's not a very good picture because he's got his thumb in front of it. That's a 1912 license plate. This picture was taken in 1912. So now I know. Cool thing about it is H.W. Lewis, Horseneck Beach, you could rent a car on East Beach. Why would you want to do that? Let's look at the next picture. Kind of getting a lot of sand in those primitive fenders too. And I don't know if he's 16. I don't know. I guess he could be. Maybe they didn't worry about it so much. I don't think I've identified what kind of car that is. There we go. You could go for a drive on the beach. At low tide, you could just go terrorize the bathers and seagulls. They'd still be doing it if we let them. Oh, this is the other thing you can do down there. This is one of my favorite pictures. That's the front boardwalk of the store. So we're standing on the store looking across towards the water, and there's that fancy double chimney house again. I'm pretty sure that's the oldest Williston kid. She was in the other picture. And I think that's just a friend. Another thing to point out here is, look at this house. This is one of the oldest houses at this end of the beach. It's really just on stilts, right? So that reflects how this end of the beach in particular developed. This was the town landing. So it was basically where, like I was saying, Keuke Maycumber told me, the fishermen would come in and haul up their pots. Then they would build some sheds, and then the sheds got a little more permanent looking, maybe they put in a stove, and then the next thing you know, there's a house with a foundation. So that they were all pretty small and cheek by jowl, but that's how it evolved. You see, there's still some sheds at this end. I think we can go on. Back to the story, he's got a new sign, and it says, "What are the wild waves saying? Tripp and Lawrence groceries," and there's some groceries. So what in the world is that? Well, fortunately we have Google, so we can find out what are the wild waves saying. Turns out to be a very popular song, one of the greatest hits of 1850. "The voice of the great creator dwells in that mighty tone," is what the wild waves are saying. It was from the very well-known play, the musical adaptation of Charles Dickens's great work, Dombey and Son, in 1850. You all know that, right? Right. So totally lost to history, right? But 1850, everybody would have known this. And it inspired this preternaturally serious boy listening and thinking, I hear the voice of my creator in that. And he's ignoring his comic book and he's just being a great kid. Ripe for parody, right? So immediately, not long afterwards, you get some parodic uses of this, which we will see next. Like these two gentlemen saying, "What are the wild waves saying, sister?" That's some kind of political cartoon in Puck in 1884. Or this one, my favorite, "What are the wild waves saying?" They're saying, "Try Beecham's Pills." Beecham's Pills are known as one of the few patent medicines of the 19th century that actually worked. But the problem was it was a laxative. So the advertisements are extremely circumlocutory about exactly what they do for you. And the people say, "I feel like a new man thanks to Beecham's Pills." This refers to bilious and nervous disorders and digestive problems. I mean, just try the Beecham's Pills. So that would have been, 1850 was like 60 years before this. So think of a song from 60 years ago that would be on here. And I think it would be something like the Beach Boys. So it would be, "Help me, Rhonda, help me get down to the Horseneck store." Or, "I'm picking up good vibrations at the Horseneck store," or something like that. Although these guys look a little old to be Beach Boys fans, so maybe something by the Grateful Dead, you know. But anyway, it was just something that would have been totally in the society. Here we are, though, the wild waves are now saying E.L. Fish. Mrs. Fish took over because Mr. Tripp died. And this is the last picture I have of this store. It's still shown as a store on my 1933 map, but again, if it weren't for Clarence, we wouldn't have any pictures of this at all. I don't know if it stayed a Fish store or not, but it was still a store in 1933. Don't know about 38. Okay, so we're at the end of the beach. We're at the end of these buildings. What happened to them? This is a good time to look at that. That's what happened to them. So the houses that were in the middle of the beach got washed into the Let, and then they got washed out again. This ceiling is 10 feet up. The 38 hurricane storm crest was measured in Acoxet at 14 feet above high tide. So think of 14 feet of water coming across the beach, and then let's go back out again. There's a guy who wrote a first-person account. He drove up to this area that was sort of over by the bayside, and said that he describes it as more like a tsunami. He said that the water went way out, and then a 2-mile-long front of foam just came in, and the first wave took out all the stone buildings, and the second wave took out all the wood buildings, and then it was just all gone. This is one of the ones from Dartmouth Historical Society. That's a chunk of one of the houses, the last one on the beach. It's just washed up onto Horseneck Road. We're actually standing not too far from the bayside, I would imagine, just where the road starts to go up, or where the Audubon is. The military police moved in and made it their headquarters for a little while. That's just the top half of his house. So that's what happened at that end of the beach. Now, that later became 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street, but I don't think anything from 38 wound up there. It was just too destroyed. I think it's later on, houses were moved there after Carroll in 54 and things like that. But I don't think there was enough left to move in 38. So here we are again with the two-chimney house. Remember, that's at the end of the beach. Not far from the far end. Let me see if there's any other guys in there. Right, okay, so, right, here it is. So when you come down the beach, that's right at the jog in the road, the first one. That's the Horseneck store. You can see it sort of had the Let behind it. That's where the two-chimney house was, so right at that first jog. Now, remember how I was in the beach, walking along the beach around Christmas, and I came across that terracotta thing? We'll show that next. This is the house, by the way, that ended up on Horseneck Road, ended up there. That's piece of First Street. So what happened is all these houses were washed across this marsh and fetched up on this hill. I've seen a description of what happened to Little Beach. It's just like great destruction at Little Beach. Okay, great. So again, not much information on Little Beach. I'd love to get more. Here's this just to remind you of that. So I have GPS coordinates on this when I took a print with my phone, and I looked them up. And the GPS coordinates show that this thing was in the basement of that double chimney house. So that is from that house. I can't believe anybody built again on it. Whatever it was, well or septic or something, that's where that particular house was, and the Horseneck store would have been right across the street. So you can still see this stuff coming out of the beach even now. So yeah, you can see we're right near the end of the beach. Right there at the jog on the road. So next time you come to the jog on the road, think about this, right? This is where, if you're looking on the water side, you could have that cute little double chimney house, and if you're looking on the land side, that's where the Horseneck store was, and the wild waves were saying E.L. Fish. You can hum a little tune from Dombey and Son while you're there. All right, we'll let this cycle through. Must be a really big slide coming up. There they are. Yeah, so that's, remember, they're just on the plank walk of the store with that, and that orange thing is like right there. I'm still not quite sure what it was. Got to be plumbing. Okay, some mysteries for the end here. I have right up here, this is the slide I used years ago when I did this presentation. These were things where I didn't know where they were, but we've solved some of them. The ones on the bottom are still mysteries. And we'll page through those two. So this one, we went through that. Remember I said I didn't know where that store was, but with all this stuff from Clarence, we've been able to figure it out. I'll do a spoiler here. This one has penciled on the back, Seaward, Horseneck Beach, 1924. I've got cards that say Horseneck Beach that were in Rhode Island, so they could be wrong, but nonetheless, there's a little sign that says Seaward, and there's this house, and it's very particular, and I have never seen a house like that on Horseneck Beach, west or east. It kind of looks like east because the water's so close, but if anybody ever knows that they spent time in Seaward and Horseneck Beach, let me know. We'll see if we can nail that one down. Oh, come on, can we get the next one? Shoot. There we go. So these are solved. It's confused by the font. This one, you can sort of make out here. There's a wonderful video that the Westport Historical Society has called Footprints in the Sand, put together by a woman who grew up on Horseneck Beach. It's got tons of information. It's really great, amazingly good stuff for something somebody put together on their own in the 90s. And one of the things she says is that there was an A&P up by Horseneck Point. I know there was a roller rink. I've got pictures of that. I didn't have it in this presentation. But the A&P remains a mystery. Where was it exactly? Now this photo came up in a stack of photos of pictures around Horseneck, and you can just make out over their shoulder like an A&P. And I'm wondering if that was an A&P. But the thing that I'm dying to find out, I can't believe that there would be an A&P on the beach and nobody would know, like, you know, my uncle worked there, or my grandfather worked there, or I used to shop there. But so far, no indication of exactly where it was. I think it was right around where the life-saving station is, but so far it remains a mystery. So that's another one that I would love to get any information anybody has, that and Little Beach. I'm going to let this cycle through. It's going to try to get to a couple more pages. They say, yeah, here we go. It'll keep working. That's the C word. There we are. See? And P. That looks a lot like an A and P to me. But I can't identify that. It's just not quite a good enough print. That house is kind of distinctive, but and I don't know who the people were. So these things remain mysteries until they're solved all of a sudden. That's the way this goes. If you find out, let me know. Don't try to Google David Jones. That's like Googling John Smith. Totally hopeless. Google Clam Flats Westport. Clam Flats, one word, 2 words, and you get a lot of pictures of mud. But 1 word, and you'll find me. I'll put this presentation up online there, and after I spend a little more time processing it. But you can also just reach me through that site. That's like a Flickr site. Or if you remember to write down Clam Flats at Earthlink, you can get a hold of me. So if you have information, I'm open to it. The next slide's going to say, yeah, these are all my pictures. I own them all unless I wrote somewhere that I took them from someone else. And then it's going to go to one more picture because it's time to ask questions. That is when the slides get done. I want to stay with that one. That's the one I want to have up. These are my spirit animals for this particular.